All right, everybody, welcome to our Gator University program here. We're coming to you live from Chatsworth, New Jersey at our Gator Studio USA. So I'm George Biter with Alliance, and with me here is Mike Huber, our Director of Technical Services, a fantastic resource. If you haven't had an opportunity to meet with Mike or talk to Mike, he is one of the best resources at Alliance to help you on job sites and so forth. So with that, I want to get into our program here. We respect your time. We're going to try to keep this to a tight program for you. So let's get into it, Mike. I will first want to talk about just the Demio platform, some little housekeeping here. So if you would, Ryan, pull up that screen here, and we'll walk you through that, Mike.
Right, so on your screen where that blue arrow is pointing, that will take you to a full screen mode, give you the best experience to watch our presentation today. If you have any questions, that little circle is pointing to an arrow where you can click and expand the chat window. Type any questions, comments in there. We'll try to get back to you and answer as many as we can live here.
Awesome. We know we got a lot of people out there from all over North America. We'll get to as many questions as we can. Please keep them coming. We love the questions. We've got some of our staff here to help give us the questions, and we'll answer those. So we're going to be quick-hitting program. We wish we could be there live with you and do this in front of you. We're doing the best we can with a setup here at our Gator studio. So this is going to be great training, but your reps are always available to come out and see you live and do a more hands-on demonstration. So we hope you get a lot out of this. Mike, I know you put in a ton of time building this. We appreciate it, but this is what we're going to do to get that virtual training out to you and keep things rolling. So let's get into it. I think the best way to start a Gator Base program is with the video.
That video is awesome. Let's roll that, Ryan.
Well, a 5-day job traditionally would take 4 days with Gator Base. If a 5-day job is worth $30,000, we can do it in 4 days. Frees us up to get to another day.
All right, I can't get enough of that video. It really pumps me up. But this whole 4 equals 5, Mike, tell us what that's about.
Well, Gator Base is a game changer. We really feel that you're going to save tons of time when doing a Gator Base installation. So the work that you normally did in 5 days, you can get done in 4 days if you use Gator Base.
Yeah, so 20% labor savings with Gator Base. That's really the wow factor in Gator Base. Let's talk about really how we get to that labor savings. So talk about the concept.
Well, it's really simple. Gator Base replaces 6 inches of crushed compacted stone base material. So you're not digging out all that soil.
Yep.
You're not bringing in all that crushed stone.
Awesome. And I think we got a cross section here. If Ryan will bring that up on screen, I think this will better explain what you're talking about here.
Right. So now we've got a foam board that is going to give you load distribution. It's going to give you an insulative value. It's going to replace that crushed stone for structural purposes. So now we don't need all that rock underneath our patios, and able, to support that and give it a long-lasting, settlement-free type of installation.
Awesome. So we've got that, and we'll talk about some other labor savings time, but we're really talking about saving you labor on a job site. And the concept also extends into that load transfer.
Right. We want to spread that load over a larger area, right? You step in a wet, soggy, swampy area and you sink in. But if you stepped on a 2-foot by 3-foot Gator Base panel, you wouldn't sink in. It's kind of that snowshoe effect.
Okay.
So the ground doesn't feel quite as much of a force as it normally would.
Yeah. And so that eliminates a lot of excavation, a lot of labor, and leads to ultimately faster jobs. Another great benefit, though, of Gator Base is the insulation factor.
Oh, Gator Base is foam, and foam is a great insulator, right? Yep. What causes movement and problems in our installations? It's typically freeze-thaw in these northern climates.
Yep.
So if we can minimize the number of freeze-thaw cycles, we're going to come out ahead. Less movement, less potential for frost heaves. Gator Base has an R value of 3.6 per inch.
Yeah.
That's equivalent to 16 inches of crushed stone.
That's a lot. That's a lot. So you get a great labor savings, plus you get the added benefit of insulation. So you ultimately get a better installation.
Correct. You know, not only is it a faster installation, but it is truly a better installation. We've got millions of square feet in the ground, no callbacks, no problems. It really is a simple, fast, fantastic solution for installing pavers.
Great. Well, enough about the concept. I think a lot of people want to see how does it really work, and let's get into that installation process.
Well, that's the beauty of it. It goes really quickly.
Yeah, great. So what do we need to talk about? Where do we start?
Well, we're going to start with our excavation, right? The first thing you got to do on any project is dig a hole.
Okay, so we've got a hole here dug. Mike, what are the lookout or watch outs that we have to consider during the excavation phase?
Well, hey, I know contractors. They love to go out there with their skid steers, excavators, and they're going to dig 12 inches, right? They're going to dig 6 inches without even thinking about it.
Way too much.
We only need 4 inches.
Yeah.
So, hey, have a little bit of care as you go out there. Don't over-excavate. That's probably our most common problem. If you over-excavate, you can't just compact that leftover soil. You need to bring in some stone and compact it. So pay attention to your grades, and really, you're only taking off the sod, the top layer of grass and root mass, and you're ready to go.
Awesome. Now, I know we talk about this product being amazing, but a lot of guys might find some grades and some other issues here. Anything we need to do to correct grade changes?
Yes, you can't just take that dirt that you dug out of the high side, throw it on the low side, and expect that you're going to compact it and it's not going to settle, right?
Yeah.
Typically, soil fluffs up when you dig it out, so you need to bring in crushed stone to build up the low side like you would on any other project.
Yeah, good. And so this is a great product, but it's not a miracle. I can't make up 12 inches of grade change with Gator Base.
Right, and by the same token, if you would normally dig out 2 feet of nasty clay soils, amend the soils with Portland cement, put in number 2.5-inch clean stone and build up from there with 2 feet of base. Gator Base isn't going to fix that problem.
Sure.
You got to be reasonable.
Okay. And the general rule of thumb that I always tell people is Gator Base replaces 6 inches of compacted gravel. Like Mike's talking, if you got to use 20 inches of compacted gravel, Gator Base is going to replace 6 of those. So Mike's getting started here. I'm going to join him. Now, the first thing he's talking about here is compacting your native soil. So we're going to compact here. We've got some hand tamps here for the purpose of this indoor demo. But, Mike, you're not going to do this on a real job. What kind of machine?
No, of course.
Are you
You'd use a regular plate compactor, right?
Okay. So we're just going to do this here for demonstration purposes. Get this done.
A couple things to keep in mind. Pay a little bit more attention to your excavation. You want to be a little bit tighter on it. Normally, you're filling it up with crushed compacted stone. If you're plus or minus an inch or two, it doesn't really matter. But with Gator Base, our setting bed layer is only an inch thick. So we want to make sure that excavation's pretty tight with the tolerances.
For sure. So after we compact the subsoil here, I'll give you the GF 4.4. So
all right, so we're putting in a non-woven fabric.
Great.
That is a very important distinction. We want a fabric that's going to drain, allow water to pass through it freely. So you're not using a woven fabric. Woven fabric's like putting a blue tarp underneath your project.
Yeah, no draining on a blue tarp. You're just holding water for that.
Exactly. So any project you're doing with fabric, you want to work from your low side to your high side, overlap so water runs on top and not underneath. Make sure you're wrapping up over the sides of your excavation, up a concrete curb, up the foundation of a house. That's going to prevent that bedding sand from migrating out and washing out underneath your project.
So all sides would be wrapped like this for our demo here. We're wrapping this for show, and then you just cut that off after you're done with the project.
Exactly. It gives you a long-term performance guarantee there.
Yeah, great. All right, so we got the fabric down. Next step here is we've got to screed some sand.
Yep, we're ready to put in our bedding layer. So our bedding layer could be sand or it could even be chip.
Yep, and we'll show that to our audience here shortly.
But the one key thing is that we only want an inch of bedding material. We don't want 3 inches of bedding material.
Right, okay.
And we want it to be a consistent amount.
Okay.
So you don't want 2 inches of bedding material in half the job, tapering to a ½ inch of bedding material in another part of the job.
All right.
So on this project, we're going to use some sand. That's probably the most common bedding material used for Gator Base, and that's going to be an ASTM C33 concrete sand. That's not masonry sand, it's not play sand. It's a sand that has a great gradation, packs well. Good. Your other alternative is to use chip
Yeah, we'll show that here in a minute, what we're talking about with the chip once we get started here.
So we're going to just screed this out, get a nice, even, consistent 3/4 inch layer here using 1/2 inch iron pipe.
All right. So screeding the sand, I think, is probably one of the most important things to watch out. You know, I see oftentimes people cheating. That 1 inch is really key. We don't want to cheat that sand layer like Mike's talking about. Otherwise, we could lead to problems down the road. All right.
It helps to have a little bit of moisture content in your sand. You know, make sure it's not bone dry. All right, let's just go over that one more time.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep. Hit it.
All right. So we're going to work on pulling the excess material out of here. Now the next discussion point would be sand versus chip. There's no structural advantage to using a stone chip,
Okay.
but there are definitely some job site efficiency and practical benefits to potentially considering using chip as your setting bed material instead of this sand.
Yeah. Mike, you finish that up. I'll show us what we're talking about with chips here. Ryan, if we could go on the GoPro here, I think we'll get a nice tight shot of what these chips look like. Mike, talk about the gradation with these chips.
So what we'd want to see would be an ASTM number 9 stone or even a number 8 stone. That's a 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch clean chip. We're not talking about stone dust or screenings here, but a clean chip. And you would screed that out exactly the same as you saw us do the sand here.
Yeah, okay.
Now, a lot of guys are really grabbing and latching on to this idea of a chip setting bed because it's fairly easy to work with. You can work in, rainy or wet weather a little bit better than sand, and there's less compaction needed.
Yeah, I love the idea of working in rain and the compaction thing, another time saver just to kind of speed things up. So I think that's why that chip is getting a lot more attention now and becoming more of a popular trend.
Right, so our next step here is to actually go ahead and do some compaction once we fill in these screed pipe
All right, so
voids.
you fill in the screed pipe.
Now, we do recommend compacting the sand setting bed here.
Yep.
If you did chip, you wouldn't have to do this step. And admittedly, compacting a sand setting bed isn't the easiest thing to do. If you have a small project, you can go at it with a hand tamper. It's not too bad and fairly efficient. If you're working on a larger project and you put a plate compactor onto your sand setting bed, you'll throw up ridges in between each pass. You'll make some pretty good divots wherever you turn. So
Yeah,
you may want to consider what a lot of our contractors who use Gator Base regularly are doing, and that's to simply put the Gator Base panels down on an uncompacted sand setting bed, and then account for about 3/16 to 1/8 of an inch of settlement when you do your final compaction of your pavers on top of the Gator Base.
Yeah, okay. And I think you mentioned the moisture content's going to be big. When you run a true vibratory plate compactor on this, that moisture content is really going to make a difference in terms of the easiness or the ability to compact, right?
Right.
All right.
So now we have a very consistent, very even 3/4 inch layer of concrete sand. And with that,
I think it's time for Gator Base, right?
we're ready for Gator Base.
All right.
Could I see one of those Gator Base panels, George?
There you go.
All right. So a couple things to note real quick before we get started. The Gator Base panels are approximately 2 foot by 3 foot. They have an interlocking tongue and groove edge, so each panel latches into the panels adjacent to it.
Okay.
That's really important. We don't want these panels to shift underfoot, move underfoot, lift off and get blown away, so the interlocking edge, which is unique to Alliance's Gator Base project, is key. We have transverse and through drainage. That means that water is going to move laterally across the surface of the Gator Base, make it to these holes, and drain right through,
on through.
into that sand or chip setting bed layer and out of the project.
Awesome. Good. And then I think the one question we always get is, how do you cut it?
Well, that's a good question, George. You might think the Gator Base is going to be hard to cut. You know,
Yeah.
it's a pretty tough material. I can bend it, doesn't snap. All you need is a utility knife, right? So we give it a little slice and
Wow.
snap the Gator Base right off, kind of like cutting sheetrock.
Perfect. And you can do a nice radius there if you're doing a serpentine walkway or something like that. Pretty simple.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, let's lay this Gator Base, Mike.
All right, so Gator Base is going down now. So we have our Gator Base panels. One little tip and trick is to line all of the Gator faces up in the same orientation. That ensures that your Gator Base panels will all interlock properly.
And what I like about this is that interlock or that lock and go system here. You can see Mike is now on the sand setting bed layer.
And I'm not lining up my Gator faces,
There
but
you
now
go.
I am.
It'll snap down in there. And that lock and go is really unique because, like Mike said, unique to Alliance and
can
really
see-
is a huge advantage for us.
See, the panels are not shifting or moving underfoot. I can walk on top of the
Yep,
surface here. I need that half, please.
that's right.
So we're going to stagger our Gator Base a little bit. We're going to try to not end square on a joint with each of our successive panels.
Yeah, so this here would be the seam, and obviously we want to bridge that seam with a full sheet or bridge it with a part of the full sheet there. And they just snap and go 3/4 inch thick, so that's
Yeah, a
where
little
that
extra.
insulation factor comes into play, giving us that R value 3.6. So looking good there. All right.
All
Love
right,
this. You're
so
walking on the sand bed.
we've
big
got a
advantage.
great surface to work on, right?
Yeah.
I've installed a lot of pavers with a sand setting bed. You have to be very careful, right?
Yeah.
You have to work from a solid edge, whether that's grass or pavement.
Yep.
Bend over all day, click and drop, work your way out. You got to have somebody bringing you pavers from behind. Gator Base changes all that.
Yeah. Much easier. I think we'll show that too with these large format. But so let's get started here. Laying pavers and now seat walls. So tell us about the seat walls,
Seat
Mike.
walls, huh?
Yeah.
Well, Gator Base has been around for a while, and we've done quite a bit of testing with it.
Sure.
We're confident enough in the performance of Gator Base to now endorse a seat wall application.
Okay.
So before, you'd do a patio. You'd have to do your cutouts,
Right.
pre-plan your seat walls,
Yep.
excavate traditional crushed stone base, build your walls, then bring your Gator Base into it.
Yeah.
Now, seat walls up to 18 inches high and 12 inches wide can go right
Awesome.
on top of the Gator Base.
Yeah. Huge benefit. Big advancement for us. Now, are there any restrictions on this when you do a seat wall?
Well, there certainly are. We talked about that overall weight. So Gator Base is a great product, not a miracle product, but in most soil conditions, as long as you don't have something that's completely unsuitable organic or clay material, you're going to be able to build that 18-inch high by 12-inch wide seating wall.
All right.
You can see where this is getting placed on the project.
Yep.
We want to make sure that we have 12 inches of Gator Base that extends past the outside edge of the wall. That's going to help support the wall and give
Yep.
us enough room to put our edge restraint
And,
to keep it from moving around.
yeah. So 18 inches, that's the limitation that we're saying due to our testing and the load capacity. But you can go right on top of the Gator Base, and that's a huge advancement to really speed up the job.
Right, and then you're simply going to take your edge restraint. You can use the Gator Rigid or Flex Edge or
Yep.
the new Gator Extreme Edge concrete edging product. And you simply put that in behind the wall, anchor it with Gator screws. We'll show you that process once we finish laying pavers over here.
And we'll do a more advanced class on Gator Base. We're just showing you some of the fundamentals, and we'll get deeper into the seat wall, but those are some of the quick restrictions on it. To do 18-inch limitation, make sure you extend it 12 inches or a foot behind the wall, and then use that Gator edge.
Yep.
Awesome. All right.
So let me have
Ready for
some
pavers.
pavers here.
All right.
Wow. Now we can slide pavers right across Gator Base. So we're not bending over to click and drop all day long. We can take these.
Especially this bad boy.
Oh, that's even small these days. They make pavers much bigger than
Yeah,
this.
it's crazy, isn't it?
And I really wouldn't want to bend over all day laying 18 by 24s.
No, God, no. And this is easy little kind of sandbox, but I can only imagine laying, say, 5,000 square feet or even 1,000 square feet. I could now stage these pavers at the laying face so they're ready for
Yeah.
you walking all over the sand setting bed. You couldn't do that.
Right, you can pile them up in front of me. You know, I can be ready to go and very, very quickly lay my pavers. So hold on, I just want to show you guys something real quick here. You know, you're laying your pavers, all of a sudden you realize, hey, I got 4 corners here,
Yep.
too many bond lines going. That's a little bit of a pain on a traditional install. You pick it up, you've got to fix that sand setting
it's a
bed with a
mess.
trowel. You know,
Yep.
you've kind of crushed it in certain areas, but on Gator Base, it's a very easy fix.
Quick fix.
Slide it out of the
Slide it
way,
out.
pick it up, slide this back into place, and we're ready to go. So adjusting bond lines, swapping out pieces is very, very simple.
All right. Yeah, I think what guys are telling us that are using Gator Base, they love the excavation savings and all that, but I think they're telling us 50% faster just laying pavers.
It's really amazing, right?
Yeah.
You know, we pitch that excavation savings. You're not digging out 6 inches. You're not bringing in 6 inches of stone. But
Yeah.
I think half the benefits in just how quickly you can lay pavers.
Yeah, it really is unbelievable. So, good.
All right, so we've got a great finished paver surface here. We're ready to do edge restraint and then, you know, hey, even sand it off.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's get into the edge restraint now.
All right, so we've got a piece of edge restraint that we will attach here on the edge of our pavers, but before we do that, I just want to give you a quick little demonstration here. So our edge restraint, plastic edge, goes directly on top of the Gator Base.
Okay?
Now, historically, how do we put plastic edge restraint in?
You're going to hammer it in with a spike.
Right, and what happens 2 years after you hammer that spike in, or maybe even faster?
Yeah, it often works its way out.
Right, so now the spike's coming out of the ground,
Yep.
the edge restraint's coming out of the ground, popping up, you know, beyond the height of the paver. It looks terrible.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
And it's not performing its intended function.
Yeah, looks is one thing, but structurally it starts to weaken the whole system.
Exactly. So Alliance has a better answer for you. We're going to mechanically attach the Gator edge to the Gator Base using special screws that actually expand and clamp the Gator edge to the Gator Base forever.
Yep, awesome, good.
If you take a look at these real quick,
Need a screw.
we've put some screws through here.
So we're going to send screws out when they order those. Screws are going to come 50 in a box, and we'll give that a quick demo.
Right, so I'm going to crank this one in. So you saw that kind of butterfly and clamp right onto the edge of the Gator Base. That's a permanent connection. You know, I'm not the strongest guy in the world, but I'd be ripping that Gator Base apart to get it out if I could.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's strong in all directions. You can't rip it up, and you can't push it out, so you're not going to get that lateral movement or creep that you see oftentimes on paving stone installations.
Yep, exactly. And if you're doing it for real, you know, it's quite easy. Every other hole, you just pop your Gator screws right through, and then have somebody follow up with a drill or impact driver and just screw them in a little bit to lock them in place.
This was a huge advancement, too. I know when we first came out with Gator Base, we were using the spikes, and that was one of the questions that we got from ICPI a few years back. And then we introduced the edge restraint with the Gator screw system, and they loved it.
Yeah, they were blown away. I mean,
Yeah.
just the strength of that connection, the prevention of any possible lateral movement is
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And I remember talking to them in Montreal at that meeting and talking to their construction committee, possibly a better edge restraint system than traditional paving stones with this Gator screw
Yeah,
and edge system.
definitely. You know, the Gator Base system itself is kind of like a floating hardwood floor.
Yeah.
You take all those floating hardwood floor pieces and you stick them randomly on your floor.
Yep.
They're going to move all around when you walk on them. But
Yeah.
once they're all interlocked, snapped together, the system's finished, you would never know it's not, you know, a 2-inch thick, solid oak hardwood floor.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So this would complete the install. Obviously, we would have to do the joint sand. And next week, we've got some great programming coming up on our G2 joint sands, polymeric sands that we'll discuss next week. But this would be it for the installation, right? Other
Right.
than the joint sand.
As you can see, Gator Base goes very quickly.
Yep. And I'm not even an installer for a living, just a sales guy. And this was a quick installation. So
All
Great.
right. Do we have any questions that have
Yeah,
popped
let's
up?
pause and see if we have any questions here from our audience. What do we got?
First question here is, can you lay Gator Base on top of frozen ground?
Well, that wouldn't be ideal.
Yeah.
Frozen ground has probably swelled, right? There's moisture content in it. It's frozen. It's swollen. So
Yep.
you would not want to put Gator Base down on frozen ground or frozen soils. Best bet would be to, wait for it to thaw out and get it down and get it into place. That idea of using the chip for your installation certainly could extend your working season a little bit, right? If you can get your excavation done, get your chip in there, you don't have to worry quite so much about weather type events.
Yeah. I always tell people Mother Nature is pretty powerful. So if it's freezing and thawing and you're in the middle of that, it's probably not an ideal time to do the work. But with Gator Base, it does give you some flexibility to extend that a little bit. If your hole's dug and you're ready to go, Gator Base is a quick, easy way. You can do it in the rain. You could do it in snow if you're crazy enough. But you still have to be careful of that freeze-thaw movement in the middle of an installation.
Hey, and if you had your Gator Base down, it might protect the ground like a frost blanket to some degree.
Absolutely. Good. Any other questions, Rick? What else we got?
I got a couple more in here. I am using natural stone pavers. The architect wants 3/4 inch tubing. Your spec calls for 1/2 inch sand bed for natural stone. Can I add an additional 1 1/4 inch to cover the tubing? Will it still drain?
Well, you definitely want to minimize the amount of sand or chip that you have on a Gator Base project. So we don't want to have that much really going on top of or underneath Gator Base. Typically that 1 inch is a maximum we'd like to see you stick with.
Yep.
If you do need to put a layer of sand on top of the Gator Base to work out the irregularities in a natural stone, just different height tolerances, that's completely acceptable. We could see a 1/2 inch or 3/4 layer on top of the Gator Base to help level that out.
Sure.
But 2 inches would be too much.
And that's a great question too, that we get. But I want to make sure that question was pretty technical on the tubing. So, we're happy to go elaborate that. You can speak with Mike offline. You can always email us at sales@alliancegator.com, and we can get you connected with Mike for more in-depth questioning. But you talked about screeding sand on top of the Gator Base to help change any height differentials, right?
Right.
Okay. Good. So what other questions do we have, Rick?
Can you use porcelain pavers on Gator Base?
You most certainly can. In fact, we have an entire Gator tile system that's dedicated to installing porcelain tile on Gator Base. In my opinion, porcelain tile is a beautiful product, but a very, very challenging product for the hardscape industry as a whole. They're large format. They're very thin. They don't have any spacer bars, so they tend to want to move. They rock, they twist, they migrate. The Gator tile system includes the Gator Base, spacers, adhesive, and a special sand for the joints. That's all designed to work together and prevent any kind of movement from that tile.
Absolutely, yeah. And some great classes that we've done on that. And again, other resources are available. You saw, flashing up the ebook. We've got some great content that explain that ebook system, the Gator tile system as well, and backed up by ebooks and things like that to give you all the tools that you need.
Right. But realistically, if I was installing porcelain tile, the only way I would do it would be to either install on a concrete slab and thin set, or actually use the Gator tile system.
Yeah, good. All right. How about other questions, Rick?
Beyond the paver's edge, do you extend the Gator Base?
That's a good point. I guess we missed that one there. So you'd want to make sure that your Gator Base extends 6 inches past the outside edge of your paver, right? That 6-inch extension is going to prevent that outer course or that soldier course from rolling. How many projects have you seen where that soldier course is just kind of starting to sink and roll?
Right. Yeah, so 6 inches, and then, of course, if you're using our new Extreme Edge, which we'll talk about in other classes, that would get cut right at the edge of the paving stones, right?
Right. With the Extreme Edge, our new concrete edge solution, you would cut the Gator Base off flush with the outside edge of your pavers.
Yep.
And in order to prevent that rolling effect on the outer course of your pavers, we would undermine it slightly and actually pack that Extreme Edge underneath our project and create a little shelf that supports the entire outside perimeter of our project.
Yeah, so stay tuned, and we can go into that with upcoming classes that are just geared towards Extreme Edge. So with plastic edge restraint, 6 inches, with Extreme Edge. That's a flush system with the Gator Base.
Yep, thanks for that question. It was a helpful
Yep.
follow-up to something that we missed.
What other questions do we have, Rick?
Can you leave a project open for a period of time? Can you leave the Gator Base exposed to the elements? Does it expand? Does it affect the warranty?
The Gator Base is a very, very durable product. It's kind of styrofoam's big brother, except
Yep.
it's much more flexible, much stronger, much more resilient. You can leave it exposed for a short period of time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't leave it exposed for 6 months, but if you have a project and it's going to work, take place over the course of 2 weeks, 3
Yeah.
weeks, I wouldn't be worried about leaving the Gator Base panels exposed. I would say, hey, put a couple of pavers down, randomly throughout the project to help weight the Gator Base down,
Yeah.
make sure it doesn't blow away in a big thunderstorm or something. But the Gator Base itself will not degrade in that period of time from UV exposure or
Okay.
any kind of weather events.
Good, good. All right, Rick, how we doing on questions?
Can you elaborate a little bit on the Gator face head orientation?
Absolutely.
Certainly.
I think
So
we got a couple of pieces here. Let's get that down.
if you take a look at this, the Gator heads are present on both sides of the panel, but they're actually in a different orientation, right? So I just flip that over. Gator head's vertical. Gator head has now shifted to be horizontal. When we put these panels down in place, if the Gator heads all line up in the same direction, then that tongue and groove edge matches up. If the Gator faces are not aligned, your tongue and groove does not line up. So once your crews get used to working with this, they will actually very, very quickly start handing their guys the next piece in the right orientation from looking at it, and Gator Base goes down incredibly quickly. I mean, you're probably talking 20 minutes
Yeah.
to do 500 square feet.
Absolutely. And that's one of those things where I always talk about it, the example of if you buy a barbecue grill and you got to put the thing together, it takes you the whole weekend. Your next door neighbor comes along and buys the same grill. You help them out and you're done in 2 hours or less.
Right.
Call your Alliance rep. Your Alliance rep can help you with these little tricks on your first install to make sure that that installation goes smoothly. So how are we doing on questions? What else do we have here?
Can you tell them how to get a hold of their local Alliance rep?
Local Alliance rep, probably the best way would be email us at sales@alliancegator.com, and we could send that out to the group here, and we'll let them know where you are. A postal code or a zip code is probably the best thing to do, and we'll get you in touch with your local Alliance rep. Yeah.
How does grass grow over the 6 inches that you extend past your pavers?
Well, grass is a pretty stubborn thing. In fact, I have plenty of grass growing up from in between my concrete
Yeah.
and all over the
Isn't it
place
crazy?
that proves that it will grow almost anywhere. Now, you'll have a decent height. It is, definitely a challenge with porcelain tile or something like that.
Yeah.
But for a paver that's at least 2 3/8 of an inch, you're going to get your topsoil covering this, and your grass will grow on it. I haven't seen any cases where the grass has refused to grow on
Yeah.
top of the Gator Base there.
No, like you said, it's pretty stubborn. I've seen it grow through rocks and, it collects with the silt. So it doesn't need much, and you would just come over this, whether it's with our, plastic edge restraint or even with the extreme edge, that, fiber reinforced mortar edge that
Right,
we
and
have.
maybe if you had extremely sandy soils where it was a struggle to grow grass, the extreme edge might be a better option, slightly
Yeah.
less to cover up with that
Right.
option.
Good, good. All right. You'll keep going on a few more questions here, and then I know we want to keep things moving, but may not get to everyone, but let's keep going here. What other questions do we have?
Can Gator Base be used on driveways?
Excellent point, right? Gator Base is a pedestrian use only product, so no driveways, no vehicular traffic. Hey, we'd love to sell you a product for driveways, but we'd have to make a piece of foam that was 3
Pretty
inches
thick,
thick,
right?
and it brings in a whole new host of questions about specific soil conditions and site conditions and drainage. So hey, we're 100% confident in Gator Base for pedestrian applications. Hopefully someday, soon, we're
Yeah.
100% confident in a driveway solution with a similar type product, but for now, pedestrian use only.
Yeah, and just a quick follow-up thought on that, Mike. We didn't go too deep into the history for today's program, but as far as foam base replacement here, tell us about the history of where this stuff really comes from, because it's originated from vehicular applications.
Right. We didn't just take foam from Home Depot and say, hey, this would be great underneath pavers. There are decades of case history of huge construction projects, building highways and bridge abutments where they're putting in 4 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot or even larger geofoam blocks to support roadways and highways and things over expansive or substandard soils.
Yeah. And so you've got all those roadways with huge foam blocks, like bin block, really, sizes of foam. And then that migrated into athletic fields. And there's, tens of millions of square feet with, pedestrian use on athletic fields with foam base. And then it's just, for the last 5, 6, 7 years or so is where we started using it in the hardscape industry. But like you said, 0 failures that we've been selling Gator Base and millions and millions and millions of square feet in the ground. So
and it's such an exciting product. As someone who's installed quite a few pavers, I wouldn't use this on every job. I wouldn't even use this on half of my projects. But there's probably somewhere between 10 and 25% of the projects that I used to do where this would have saved me an awful lot of time and
big time.
Saved my back for sure.
Absolutely. Good. All right. What other questions do we have, Rick?
Can you elaborate on using Gator Base with fire pits? Is Gator Base fire retardant?
Gator Base is not fire retardant. In fact, Gator Base will light up and cook pretty good. However, there is a way to do fire pits over Gator Base. We have a couple of cross sections, so we can send those out to you specifically to look at. But the idea is that in a fire pit, most of the heat's going up. So we just need to create some kind of a thermal break between that flame and our Gator Base, right? So one of the ways to do that would be some kind of fireplace insert, where it's a bowl, the fire's in the bowl, and the heat is mainly directed upwards. Another way to do that would be, refractory fire brick. So we could use some kind of fire brick on top of a thin layer of sand with the Gator Base, or even just a thick layer of sand. So a couple ways to do it, but a fire pit on top of Gator Base can definitely work.
And the cool thing is now with seat walls, that fire pit can go right on Gator Base.
Right, you're not cutting out a hole and putting crushed stone in directly on top of Gator Base. A few considerations to make sure you create a good thermal break between the flame and the Gator Base itself, but good to go.
Good. All right, Rick. How about 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap this up.
Can you use a heat coil with Gator Base?
All right, that goes back to that heating element idea. Certainly. We have those limitations with the thickness of that sand bedding layer. The thicker you go, the more potential instability you have. But the electric heat mats, typically tend to work in the cross-section that we're looking for. The radiant tubing's a little bit tougher, but electric heat mats have been used very successfully. And the Gator Base lends itself to it perfectly because you're insulating the ground, right? Now all that heat's being directed up into the pavers and not bleeding into the earth.
Absolutely. Good, good. All right, Rick, last question here.
Last question is, how long has Gator Base been around? Have you ever had any callbacks?
All right. Well, I think we're up to, what, six years on Gator Base?
Yeah, I think it was started in the 2014 selling season was probably our first full season selling Gator Base. And like I said, millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of square feet in the ground. And Mike, you handle all our job sites. So how many Gator Base complaints have you been to?
0.
Yeah.
I get plenty of calls on sealer that went down when it was too hot or wet. I get plenty of other calls, but I don't get any Gator Base calls. It's an amazingly forgiving product. It's over-engineered. It does a great job of distributing the load, providing that insulation, and keeping that surface uniform, those bond lines even. We have a couple test pads where we've done Gator Base and traditional base side by side, and we take people there who have never seen them before, and they tell us that Gator Base side looks more uniform, looks more even, the bond lines are truer, and it's a better installation.
And you mentioned over-engineered, and I'm looking at this piece right here. It's 12 by 12, so 1 square foot. Just give us a quick example of how over-engineered it is by standing on that.
All right, well, I'm going to stand on this 1 square foot paver, and let's say I was 144 pounds, which I'm not, but that's 144 square inches. So that would impart approximately 1 pound per square inch to whatever's below it. The Gator Base is designed to support 8
of
pounds
those,
per
right?
square inch.
Yeah.
So unless I balloon to 1,000 pounds, I think we're okay.
Yeah, and remember, Gator Base is suited for pedestrian use only. We can do the seat walls, and you could have, minor stuff. You can run a mower over it and stuff like that if you're crossing over a walkway, but over-engineered for pedestrian, no callbacks in the many, many years that we've been selling it. So phenomenal product. All right, good. Well, what I want to do is go to the next slide here and kind of wrap things up, if we could. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to us and help understand where Gator Base is from and how it can help save you jobs. That 4=5.com website has really some incredible must-see videos that people should watch to really get their head around this. We went through this pretty quickly here today. Please, use your reps. They love going out and showing Gator Base. And I think, Mike, you've been out to, I don't know how many Gator
Quite a
Base
few.
jobs. So some great resources. But again, thank you so much for joining us. You're going to get a link after this program here. I think we've got some pretty cool raffles that we're doing this year. So if we could, Rick, give me a quick shot over here. We've got this really cool Yeti backpack cooler. We've got 5 of these Yeti mugs we're going to be raffling off. We're going to send you with potentially 2 Amazon gift cards. And this is pretty cool, Mike, this year. We've got these Insomnia cookies.
Hey, I love cookies.
Yeah, who doesn't? After a hard day's work, these cookies, they're going to get sent, direct to your home. Insomnia cookies, I think a lot of people have heard of them. So we're excited about that. You'll get the link after the show wraps up here today. So, from Mike and me in Chatsworth, New Jersey, appreciate you reaching out and joining us today, and let us know how we can help you. Thanks for joining in. It's all right.
Yeah, we're just putting that out there.